Hey, John, really good to see you. Happy New Year. Today we are talking about proactive planning for 2023 and 5 key resolutions. 2022, I don't have to tell you this, it was a brutal year for investors, and 2023 is certain to be challenging, but there are some action steps we can take now to set ourselves up for future success. So let's walk through a few of the resolutions that you're recommending. First on your list, rebalance. Why is that important?
This is kind of a little bit of a lost art, especially over the last 3 or 4 years. The market was soaring up quite a bit,
Hmm.
and people were hesitant to rebalance into their bonds. Um, Arguably, you've done either one because bonds have actually had a pretty tough time. But over time, inside people's 401k balances, if they rebalance over time, they should see a benefit to that.
Hmm. Right. Because when you're not rebalancing, you may be taking on too much risk, or you may not be, as much risk as you were intending. And I'm glad that you mentioned bonds because something else that we need to consider as we move into 2023 are the recent Fed rate hikes, which affect the value of bonds. We know the Fed is going to continue raising rates. And this also leads into your second resolution here, which is pay down debt, lower expenses, because when those rates increase, your debt also becomes more expensive.
Correct. And again, going back to the 4K and rebalancing, we just want to make sure that when the market's bouncing around, that you are in your risk tolerance
Right.
category. And that's really what it comes down to. And then also as you're transitioning into retirement. Now, that couples into your debt. So you
Hmm.
want to, right now, the best way for you to really invest is if you have cash in your checking savings account that's not perhaps making as much money as you'd like, and you're sitting there paying 22% interest, getting that debt paid down, I would put as a main priority for 2023.
Absolutely. I feel like that's on the top of almost everybody's financial resolutions list. Okay, moving down to number 3 here, keep saving for retirement. This is something we've talked about before, just the importance of being disciplined with this.
Sure. And, it's really tough when the market's down to invest. When it is actually the opposite of how you should be thinking about it is right now you have the opportunity to buy into the market at a relative low where the S&P is almost 1,000 points, if not a little bit more, down from its high. So, do you think you're going to see that return 12 months from now? We're not sure about that,
Hmm.
right? But I would think 5 years from now, if you're dollar cost average into the market, so you're buying into your retirement account each month, and you're doing that in a disciplined way, 5, 10 years from now, I'm confident you'll be happy with what's inside your
Hmm.
account.
And I know you also wanted to mention the new retirement account contribution limits were increased for 2023 to keep up with inflation.
It was, and then it's one of those things where when you can take advantage of these increased limits, go ahead and do that. We've talked about this before. You also have your the opportunity to still contribute to your 2022 IRA through April. So that's something I would highly encourage you to do if you have not done so already.
Hmm. And now, number 4 here, update your estate plan slash beneficiaries. This is something, again, that's really important and really easy to do, but often overlooked, right?
All the time, we see people who have had power of attorneys, trust, things of that nature they've done maybe 10, 15 years ago. And, sometimes they're fine, but sometimes they have people that are in charge of their medical that perhaps aren't even living any longer.
Right.
And so it's important to get those documents updated. So I would put that as a main priority for people maybe in their 50s, 60s, 70s. If it's been a while since you've visited with an attorney to address your power of attorneys, your trust, and perhaps just even your long term care planning in the
Right.
future. If you don't have long term care insurance, I think it's very important to have a clear picture on how you're going to address that if that were to come up.
Right. I've heard before the best time to buy long-term care insurance is when you're healthy, right?
Sure, and you know what? And if you didn't, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
There's just planning techniques you need to do beforehand instead of waiting to the moment that you need it. And so that's where the
Hmm.
planning really comes into play with
Hmm.
attorneys.
Planning, I feel like, is the word of the day here, which comes into number 5 here, John. Proactive tax planning. You mentioned contributing to Roth accounts. That's something I need to be keeping in mind, right?
Yeah, contributing to the Roth. You also have the ability if you're in a higher tax bracket at this point and you want to defer some of that tax, you have the ability to do so through April. And just proactive tax planning is always part of it. For retirees, you have your Social Security coming in, and if your income's over a certain threshold, you begin to pay tax on that Social Security. And so all those things come into play that's important to review over time. Usually your CPA doesn't have time to review all that during the tax year
Right.
when they're doing all those returns. They got to punch those suckers out.
Mm-hmm.
So really, you bring in those tax returns, and usually, your advisor, or we would love to be your advisor. We would love to go over that with you and let you know some of the ways that we can help eliminate or reduce some of that taxation, or at least have an idea that it's happening.
Right, right. I feel like CPAs are always working on lowering your taxes for this year, but it's nice to speak with an advisor to think of it a little bit more holistically. John, I always value talking these things through with you. If nothing else, too, I think it's worth a phone call to you, because even just having that extra layer of accountability with somebody's own unique financial goals and resolutions is really helpful. So if somebody has any questions for you, what's the best way to reach you?
Probably just give us a call on our phone number. It's 440-471-4300. We also have a website that you can go to if you want to click around and see what we're about. But yeah, that's usually the best way to get a hold of us.
Perfect. All right. Happy New Year again, John. Good to talk to you.
You too. Take care now.